So welcome back to the channel. After making part 2 of the series of this video, that video turned out to be 46 minutes long, and we unpacked a lot of information going over the NTSB report and the FAA report and some other documents. So I realized a lot of people probably don't want to sit through 46 minutes of it just to get to the point where I discuss the difference between the NTSB and the FAA report. So we're going to cover that here, just that portion of the video. The investigation reports only cover the events that led to the crash of Flight 191. So we're going to look at a brief video put out by the History Channel showing just the portion of where they say the damage occurred when the procedure was used. So let's go ahead and look at the video, and then we'll discuss what the NTSB found after that.
After a forklift was positioned under the engine, maintenance personnel disconnected the rear attachment point of the engine pylon assembly. But before they could remove the front attachment bolts, the work shift changed.
And while they were gone, the hydraulic pressure in the forklift had a leak in it or changed, and it tilted the pylon, which they didn't see.
This caused the rear attachment point of the engine pylon assembly to jam back up into its fitting on the wing, cracking the rear bulkhead of the pylon. The new work shift didn't notice the damage, which occurred inside the pylon, and finished what they thought was a routine repair.
Now let's look at a portion of the NTSB report and what the mechanics told the investigators and who were involved in the procedure that was used. Let's look at this NTSB report. Mechanics and the inspector who performed the spherical bearing modification on the accident aircraft recounted the operation for the safety board. The midnight shift started the modification and removed the aft spherical bearings, bolt and bushing before going off duty on March 30th. This is an out-of-sequence performance of this maintenance. The aft bolt and bushing were supposed to be removed last. When the day shift reported for duty, two of the mechanics saw the upper lug of the bulkhead come in contact with the bolts attaching the clevis to the wing. These bolts are located at the top of the clevis. The forklift's engine was running at the time, and the pressure gauge reading was at 18,000 pounds. Now, you can't do that today because forklifts are equipped with a dead man switch where if you come off the seat of the forklift dies, so you can't leave it running. It's a safety feature. When the crew could not remove the forward attach assemblies, they discovered that the engine stand was misaligned. The clamps holding the cradle to the stand were loosened, and the lifting forks and engine stand were shifted to the left forward on the engine until the cradle was properly aligned on the stand. So they had all of the weight of the engine and the pylon just on the forward mount because the aft mount was disconnected while they were moving the stand. The clamps were then affixed according to one mechanic, and the stand was moved forward 12 inches, so they were quite a ways off from the center of gravity. After the stand was realigned, the forward upper and lower attached assemblies were removed and the engine pylon assembly was lowered to the hangar floor. Now let's look at the NTSB's conclusion. Item 15 from the NTSB report. American Airlines personnel removed the aft bulkhead's bolt and bushing before removing the forward bulkhead attach fittings. This permitted the forward bulkhead to act as a pivot. Any advertent or inadvertent loss of forklift support to the engine and pylon assembly would produce an upward movement at the aft bulkhead's upper flange and bring it into contact with the wing clevis. From these two statements, it's clear that the damage occurred to the aircraft during removal of the engine and pylon. Next, we're going to look at a video produced by the FAA and look at their report and see what they have to say.
During the reinstallation process, following installation of the forward attachment fittings, the NTSB believed that manipulations of the forklift caused the pylon assembly to rotate, allowing contact between the upper portion of the aft bulkhead and the wing clevis.
Next, we'll look at the FAA report. The FAA report, during reinstallation of the engine pylon assembly, replacement of the forward pylon wing fitting bolt, prior to replacement of the aft fitting, allowed the engine pylon assembly to pivot around the forward pylon bulkhead fitting. This rotation of the engine pylon assembly around the forward fitting resulted in rear mount contact with the wing clevis. The forces imparted by this contact resulted in cracking of the pylon aft bulkhead and the subsequent failure of the fitting during a takeoff. During reinstallation. So the NTSB clearly says that it happened on removal, and the FAA clearly says it happened on reinstallation. Why is there a discrepancy between the two agencies reporting this? I don't know. They were both involved in the investigation. They both had access to all the information. It looks like the NTSB is a little more thorough in what they did because they actually recounted what the mechanics said, and that makes sense to me. We're going to go ahead and finish this up with the last portion of my last video. So let's just continue watching. So when you're inspecting something, access is everything. The greater the access, the better inspection you're going to be able to have. So when you look at these next two little clips, you're going to see if it happened on removal, if they removed the engine and pylon and then moved it out from under the wing, then they have a lot of access around this attach point that they can inspect. And remember, the damage only happened 1.5 inches to an inch from where the repair they were actually doing was. Now, if they didn't do this damage until it was installed, then you see from the other video, you have very limited access, so it's going to be much more difficult to see the damage. So if it happened on removal, like the NTSB says, then they didn't address an issue that I think they should have been addressed, and that is inspection procedures. Because you need to inspect what you're doing, and you have to look around what you're doing. And actually, the service bulletin says inspect the bulkhead. So if they took it down and they moved it forward and they could actually see it and see the bulkhead and there was damage already there, they should have noticed it. So that's why I think this is very important. So playing Monday morning quarterback is easy. Now, I said in my first video that I was just going to report, I'm just offering the truth or the facts as I see them. The facts as I see them is there is a discrepancy between the two reports. If you think that discrepancy is important, leave a comment. If you don't think it's important, leave a comment. I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Stay tuned for the next video, and thanks for watching. Peace out.